morning, everybody, or good afternoon or good evening from wherever you are across the world. It's wonderful that you're here and that you want to find out more about UCL Medical School. Welcome to our information session. We are here to talk about the MBBS programme, the medicine degree at UCL Medical School, and we've got a few of our students and staff here to answer all your questions this morning. We're going to start off with a short presentation and a few questions to you first, and then you've got an opportunity to ask us questions as well. So my name's Sarah Bennett. I am the admissions tutor for the Medicine Degree Programme at UCL Medical School, and I'm joined today by a couple of my colleagues, Professor Faye Gishan, who is the Director and Head of the MBBS Programme, Dr. Lal, who is the Deputy Head of the Programme, and two lovely medical students, and Mary and Divine, who are both doing their IBSc at the moment. So they're now in year 3. And they are there ready and waiting to answer your questions in the chat. So please do open the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen. That's where you are able to ask your questions. Please type them in. We'll either type answers or we will answer them when we get to the Q&A part of the session. So before we begin, I'm going to ask you a few questions. So I shall share my screen. So welcome. So if you've got your computer open or your phone, if you go to www.menti.com and use the code 39619641, then you can get into some of the questions that I would like to ask you. So we have lots of people joining us this morning from across the world, and we'd love to know where you're joining us from. London, excellent. Malaysia. Cambridgeshire, lovely. Luton. South Wales, Singapore, Buckinghamshire, Hong Kong, Thailand. Wow, we've got people from all over the world, so it must be later afternoon for you over there. Cyprus, fantastic. Sheffield. Amazing. Reading. Super. So we've got people from all across the UK, but also all across the world as well. So you're all very welcome. Our next slide. So what year are you currently in? So are you thinking about medicine really early? Are you in year 8, 9, etc.? Are you in year 10, 11, 12, 13 at school? Are you on a gap year? Are you a graduate currently doing a degree? Fabulous. So most of you are currently in year 13. So you are hopefully getting ready to submit that UCAS application to us, which is great. If you are in year 8 or 9, well done for being here and starting early and finding out more about getting into medicine. That is brilliant. But we do have people who apply to us who are on a gap year. A gap year doesn't make any difference to your application at all. And in fact can give you some life experience that you might then talk about when you come to interview. And likewise, we do welcome graduate entry applicants as well, who come to us after they've completed a degree. Amazing. So here's a question for you. So when did UCL start training doctors? This might be a slightly tricky one. There might be everybody trying to go onto a web browser now, trying to work out. When did UCL start training doctors? So I think most of you have decided that it was a relatively long time ago. Brilliant. Okay, so all of those dates are very relevant to UCL Medical School's history. So 1746 was when the Middlesex Hospital was first opened and started training doctors, not associated with a university. 1826 is actually when UCL opened as a university, but at that point it was not linked to a hospital and it did not train doctors. It was 1834 that was the first time that UCL was linked with UCL Hospital. So a hospital was built just opposite UCL on Gower Street to be able to train doctors who were learning at the university. 1984 is also a relevant year because that was the point at which the Middlesex Hospital Medical School joined UCL Medical School. And then in 1998 was when the Royal Free Hospital Medical School up in Hampstead also joined UCL Medical School. So we are a joint university part with 3 different medical schools that have joined us over the years. And so now we're a large North London medical school. Brilliant. Thank you very much for answering those. So now we move on to our presentation. So I'm going to ask Professor Gishen to take over at this point and tell you a little bit more about UCL Medical School.
Fantastic. Good morning, everyone. I'm not sure you can see me. I think you just see Dr. Bennett, but you can listen to my voice, and I'm delighted to welcome you. And it's really exciting for us to think that some of you in this very virtual room, are going to be UCL medical students. So that's really, really exciting. And as Dr. Bennett said, we've got 2 of our fabulous students on the call. We're very, very proud of our students, and we really think we turn out a very distinctive doctor. So why UCL? Well, UCL is in what I would, in my opinion, really one of the best cities in the world, and it's right at the heart of it. And you can see on this picture here some of the amazing places that are very local to UCL. So there you've got the Wellcome Trust, UCL University College Hospital, the Houses of Parliament, the British Museum. So these are all places that you can discover and explore. Some of you will be Londoners, but others will really find London to be a fantastic city. Next slide, please. So UCL's got a very proud academic heritage. We've produced many, many Nobel laureates in the past. We're a very big university, one of the biggest around, and we have lots of students, thousands of students placed in many academic facilities all over the campus and the university. So we don't only have undergraduates, of course, we have postgraduates. And you can see there we have a huge number of undergraduate and postgraduate programs at UCL. Thousands of students, as I said, and very good employability data at the end of it. So whatever you think about ranking tables, and there are arguments for and against different metrics and different rankings, UCL always punches very highly in research power. We're a very research-driven academic institution, and we're very proud of that. We've got a really diverse cohort of students, and you may have seen in the most recent QS World Rankings that we're currently 6th in the world for medicine. So pretty impressive, really. Next slide, please. And some of you who've been looking at the press over the last few days may have noted that UCL was named in the Good University Guide as University of the Year. So we're pretty proud of that. And those of you who follow us on socials might have seen that the UCL East Campus in Stratford has just recently opened. So that's a really fantastic resource right near the Olympic Park. So as I said before, we think we produce a very distinctive doctor. And when I'm in clinical practice, occasionally one of my colleagues says to me that they really noted and felt and wondered immediately if their junior doctor was a UCL alumnus. So what we produce is a highly capable, patient-centered clinician. That's really, really important, equipped to practice medicine in a professional, inclusive and sustainable way. grounded in science and best practice. So there we're talking about the really academic heritage of UCL and the research-driven agenda at UCL, but also we produce really kind, rounded and professional doctors. So we're, as I said before, we're incredibly proud of the UCL doctor that we produce. That's not to say other medical schools don't produce fantastic doctors. All medical schools are pretty fabulous in the UK, and everyone produces great doctors, but we are very proud of ours. So what's unique about UCL Medical School? So as I said, it's right at the heart of London, in the absolute belly of London, and it's local to all sorts of fabulous places and things that you can explore if you become a student with us. The course structure, which we're going to discuss in a bit more detail shortly. And we're very proud, and you'll speak to our two students, Marianne and Divine, about BScs shortly, but we have a huge range of BScs that our students undertake in the third year. And of course, we also have, if you've done your reading, a few students per year studying on our MBPhD course. You've got to have a lot of stamina for that, and you really will be at UCL for a long time if you choose to undertake the MBPhD. As I said before, it's a very varied multi-faculty institution. It's not just a healthcare institution, and there are students and faculty from all walks of life at UCL. We've already spoken about the research reputation of UCL, and I think the thing that's most fabulous about UCL Medical School is the student body. And those of you who've looked online or have spoken to some of our students before will know that RUMS is our student association, and it's a really fabulous and dynamic group of students. Next slide, please. So I said we'd speak a little bit about the course structure, and those of you who've looked online will know that we are one of the medical schools in the country who have a 6-year course. So unless you're a graduate, you will do an integrated BSc in the third year. The first 2 years are really the foundations of clinical sciences, and they're quite science-based, lecture-based, although there is some clinical introduction and you will meet some patients in the early years. In year 3, we alluded to this, and you might want to ask some questions about this afterwards. There are a huge range of BScs available. Our students undertake any and every sort of course, from maths, computers and medicine, to primary care, to women's health, to paediatrics. So there's a real range of BScs, and I think that's a really enticing feature of the MBBS course at UCL. Then when you get into what's called the later or clinical years, you will be, there you can see all the range of subjects that you'll be learning. It looks incredible and maybe a bit daunting before you start, but by the end of the 6 years, you'll come out knowing about all these different subjects and areas, and you will be on clinical placements. So you will be learning at a range of our partner hospitals, for example, UCLH, the Royal Free, the Whittington, Barnet, North Middlesex, and lots of district generals, and of course lots of general practices and primary care locations. Most of them are quite local, some of them are further afield, and that's an exciting thing to be able to go to learn medicine and to learn from colleagues all over the country. So this picture comes from our curriculum map, which you can look at online if you wish to, and you'll see very importantly at the bottom that clinical and professional practice, so these are 16 modules that underpin and run all the way through the curriculum. So they run spirally, and what that means is that these are topics that are revisited throughout the MBBS. So you start to build on your learning all the way through, and they're very important areas there. Things like ethics and law as they relate to medicine, mental health, all sorts of things that you can see there. Pharmacology, which is use of medicines, pathological sciences, anatomy and imaging. So there's a huge array of modules that do run throughout the course. So just to think about how you'll be learning as a medical student at UCL. So of course we have the traditional large lecture sort of format, and those happen throughout the course, but quite extensively in the first couple of years. We also have tutorial teaching and learning. There is self-paced learning, so that's learning that isn't done with teachers, but is done in your own time or in timetabled time. We have a lot of learning in the community. We think primary care and general practice are an absolute integral part of medicine. Many of you will end up as general practitioners, so that's a really important feature of our course. Of course, there's a lot of clinical and practical skills that run throughout, and you'll come out knowing how to do all sorts of procedures, from taking blood to passing a catheter to all sorts of things. So you'll come out knowing and being proficient in a lot of clinical skills. Of course, one of the things that people find very attractive about our course is that we have full body dissection. So we are very, very privileged that people donate their bodies to us, and we use cadavers for learning of anatomy. So that really is an absolute privilege that's available at UCL Medical School. Most, as I said, of the later years is taught in clinical settings, although there are some tutorials and lectures. So one thing we get asked about a lot is how we assess. And effectively, we have two ways of assessing, really. One is written tests, which take place. They are usually single best answers, and they are called applied knowledge tests. That's the GMC language. And we also have clinical and practical exams, which are called CPSAs. And those are what you might have seen termed OSCEs. So those are practical exams that we ask our students to take at the end of each year. And we have both summative, so those are progression exams, and formative, those are practice mock exams. And you will have summative and formative exams in each year of the MBBS. So I think I'll pass to Dr. Bennett at this point to take over. So thank you, Sarah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Professor Gushen. So whilst you're at university, it's such an exciting and enjoyable time, but also it can be a time of anxiety and apprehension, actually. And we know that over the last few years, particularly during the pandemic, a lot of students have found it quite challenging to come to university. And a lot of people out there have a variety of physical and mental health conditions, and that doesn't stop you studying medicine or any other course at university, but we need to know about it, and we want to be able to support you whilst you're here. And so there is quite a bit of support available to you. It is quite different to school when you come to university. It's much bigger. It's very easy to be one of many. And so it is important that you reach out to us now. But you'll have a personal tutor who will be looking after you, who'll be the go-to person to ask questions and to support you during the course. There will be a transition mentor in year one, in term one, who is one of our medical students who can give you a little bit of a flavour of what their experiences have been like and give you an idea of some of the sources of help that are available to you. We also have student advisors. So in year one, these are people who will phone you, who are available for appointments, and who are there outside of the MBBS programme to provide you with that additional layer of support. At the medical school, we're very lucky that we have our own MBBS tutors who can advise about our programme specifically, about interruptions of study, about extenuating circumstances, about anything that might impact on your ability to progress on the programme. They can even provide careers advice and all sorts of advice about getting through the 6 years of the course. Our RUMS team are incredibly supportive, and that's what's really lovely about UCL is the RUMS family, and Medics for Medics and the RUMS Welfare Service. They really do provide some support for students on a peer-to-peer basis, and you can see Iram there who's holding our bunny, and we occasionally have some pet therapy that comes into the course itself as well. And of course, the university has its own specialist services. So there is psychological support. The UCL Student Support and Wellbeing Services are for every student across the campus. There is careers advice, and there is also financial advice as well. Now, as much as we would love to be able to support every student through university, it's very expensive these days, and cost of living has obviously impacted everybody. And so we do encourage students to have a look at the bursaries that are available, to perhaps speak to one of the funding advisors to make sure that you've got appropriate funding in place. So hopefully now that we've convinced you that UCL is a place that you want to come and study, how do you get into medical school? Well, it is a bit of a hurdle-based process. And I think there are three main stages to that. The first bit is what you're doing now, is the preparation part. I mean, if you're in year 13, you've probably done all of that already. You've spent a few years maybe thinking about this. It is important to gain some work experience. I will talk to you about that on another slide, but work experience is not necessarily shadowing a doctor or clinical-based work experience. It is about experiencing the skills, the attributes and behaviours that are necessary for working in a healthcare setting, and developing that understanding of what it is to be patient-centred, to be a professional, and to understand that this is definitely the course and the career that you would like to go into. You do need to have achieved the correct GCSE grades in English and maths, and you need to be studying biology and chemistry at A level or at higher level in IB. And now is the time to do that bit of wider reading and think about what is it to be a doctor. Perhaps read some of those books that are written by doctors and nurses about their experiences of the NHS. Perhaps look at blogs and websites. Real-life television and fly-on-the-wall programs are also very useful because they can really give you an idea of what it's like to work in a healthcare setting. All applications need to be received usually by the 15th of October, but this year, because that falls on a Sunday, it's the 16th of October, so make sure that the application is in on time. And this year, you will need to complete the biomedical admissions test as well. The next stage then is receiving a notification of interview. We have multiple mini interviews at UCL that we run from December through to March, and all of the offers that we make to applicants will be A-star, AA at A level, or 39 points at IB. And the A-star must be in biology or chemistry, and biology and chemistry must be studied at high level in IB. So in a bit more detail, so it is competitive. We do receive a lot of applications every year, over 3,500 for just 334 places. That number of places is strictly capped by the UK government. Likewise, the places for international students are 7.5% of our total cohort, and that's the same for every medical school across the UK. So we only have 24 places, and on average, we have over 1,000 applications from international students. So there are usually somewhere between 30 to 40 applications per place. Invariably, we'll tend to interview somewhere between 800 and 1,000 applicants. So we are not able to interview every eligible applicant. So almost all of those 3,500 applicants are very eligible to apply to us and have got great applications. So we will talk to you about what makes your application suitable to come to interview. So the first step is meeting our minimum academic entry requirements. This is really important. Please don't waste an application. You've only got 4 choices to medicine on your UCAS application on a medical school that you don't meet the minimum academic requirements for. So at GCSE, that's grade 6 in maths and English language. At A level, it's an A-star and 2 A's at A level, with the A-star in biology or chemistry. Unfortunately, we are not able to consider applicants that have the A-star in their 3rd subject. Your 3rd subject at A-level can be any subject, except critical thinking and general studies. So you can study art, drama, maths, sciences, physics, psychology, history, geography, anything for that 3rd subject, we don't mind. IB is 39 points with 3 subjects at higher level, and you've got to get a 6 or a 7 in biology and chemistry. And there is a contextual offer. So some students we know come from a widening participation background, and that's usually through postcode data that we get that, and through the school that you attend. So if you attend a non-selective state school and that you meet the entry criteria in terms of your postcode, where there is low participation in higher education and where there is a level of deprivation within that area, you may well be eligible for this offer. And so do have a look at our website for that, because you will be eligible to apply with grades of A, B. So I've highlighted here some key points about admissions, because these are the sort of questions that we regularly get asked by applicants. It makes no difference what other GCSEs you've taken or how many GCSEs you've sat. So it is no advantage for you to have 14 9s over 7 7s. We only look at the GCSEs in English language and maths, and that you have a grade 6 in those. We do allow you to resit those 2 GCSEs. And so if you are doing that, if you've scored a 5 or below in either of those subjects, you would need to indicate on your UCAS application that you are resitting alongside your A levels. And therefore that would be one of the offer requirements that we would have for you. You must sit A levels over 2 years. And we don't accept resits of A levels, unfortunately, that if you don't meet the entry requirements through the A level grades that you have, please do consider one of the other medical schools across the UK. There are over 40 different medical schools, and they are all brilliant medical schools that will give you a fantastic education. We do not require you to have taken an EPQ. There are many other ways in which you can demonstrate to us your research skills, your ability to write academically, and looking at blogs or massive open online courses, etc. And so there are some skills that you do develop by doing an EPQ, but not everybody has that opportunity. And so it isn't an entry requirement. You must also be aware that we don't use personal statements for selection. Now, writing a personal statement is still incredibly useful as part of your application, to write down on paper in a succinct and concise way why you want to study medicine and what preparation you've made for your application. Personal statements can be used at interview, and so be aware of that. They may well use your personal statement as one of the stations in a multiple mini interview. So it is well worth writing a good statement. And we only use BMAT scores to select you to interview. So if you meet our minimum entry requirements, we then rank you based upon your BMAT scores. So you will need to do well in BMAT. That is how you have a successful application. You must have scored at least a 2.5B in section 3, and then we look at the sum of section 1 and section 2. We do look at international applicants separately, simply because it is a different cohort and we've just got 24 places. And we do also look at those that meet our Access UCL contextual offer requirements separately as well. And we may have a lower threshold for that section 1 and 2 score for Access UCL students. It's highly likely that we would not accept or would not be able to bring to interview somebody who's scored less than 4 in section 1 or section 2. Offers will always be for 3 A levels, not for anything more. So it does not confer an advantage to anybody to be studying more than that. We appreciate that some students would like to study 4 or 5 A levels, but you must make sure that you are able to then meet the A star and 2A's requirements at the time of confirmation. So the biomedical admissions test. So the test date is the 18th of October this year. And so you must apply ASAP if you have not, because the last application deadline is the 29th of September. We've put all the average scores on our website and include the scores that got people to interview last year. But please do remember that that's only an indication. The scores vary every year because it's a different cohort of students applying. There is a different range of scores that students will obtain. And also we interview a different number of students every year. And so of course we may go a bit lower some years because we are interviewing more applicants. So please just use that as an indication. So it is very difficult for us to be able to say, this is a score that will get you an interview. The main piece of advice is to use the freely available past papers on the Cambridge Assessment website, because they are the best revision. You don't need to go on a course, but do those in a timed fashion. There is some reimbursement cost, so if you are struggling with the cost of paying for taking the test, please do look at the reimbursement. And we will actually be using UCAT. So for those of you that are in year 12 and below who are on the call today, from next year for your application in 2024 for 2025 entry, we will be using UCAT scores. Work experience. So as I mentioned, it doesn't need to be clinical work experience. And we appreciate it's really difficult for applicants to actually achieve clinical work experience these days, and particularly post-pandemic when everybody is now very busy. And all applicants will be in exactly the same position. So do have a look at what's online. So I've put there the Observe GP logo. Have a look at Medical Schools Council, because it has a link to Brighton and Sussex Medical School online work experience as well, which gives you a lot of information about the skills required, about day-to-day clinical practice. It gives you some examples of patient interactions, which can be really useful for then coming to interview and having that knowledge of what it is like day to day. There is no minimum requirement for work experience. Interviews. So the interviews is a multiple mini interview. It's a bit like an OSCE, and they happen between December and March, and we invite in a rolling basis. So it means, again, no advantage to be invited in December versus being invited in March. And what we're looking for are some of these aspects in each of the stations. So developing your interest in healthcare, thinking about what your understanding of the career is like, but then what are all those skills and attributes that we are looking for in our future doctors? What would you want to see when you see a doctor in the future? And how can you demonstrate those, and why are those particular skills important? So finally, my advice to you: it is tough. It's a long course. It is a lot of content to learn, and it feels quite daunting. But if you want to do it, go for it, because it is brilliant. It is still a brilliant career to follow. But do some research. Have a look at the medical schools' websites. Look at the courses. Think about whether you would thrive on that particular program. Would you like a big medical school? Would you like a medical school in the centre of London? If so, UCL might be for you. But if you would prefer a smaller medical school or outside a big city, then think about the other medical schools across the UK. There's lots of information on the web that is freely available. Have a look at healthcare websites, blogs, keep up to date with healthcare, things that you can then talk about to show that you are interested. It is competitive, but please don't give up. If you're not successful the first time around, like many students are, unfortunately, try again. If that's what you want to do, take a gap year, or think about doing another subject and applying as a graduate. There are lots of different entry points. So I wish you all the best. I hope that my team have been able to answer some of your questions in the chat. So now it is over to you. So let's have a look at what we have had in the question and answer section. So thank you for answering the questions so far. So I'm going to come to Anne-Mary and Divine to begin with. So Anne-Mary, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about why you chose to come to UCL Medical School.
So, hi, my name is Anne-Mary, and I'm currently going to third year, and I'm going to be doing my Pediatrics IBSc. In terms of why I went to UCL, first of all, it was the only one I got an offer for, so that decision was quickly made for me. But it was the only London uni that I applied to, and it was the only one I really wanted to go to as well. And the main reason for that is that I went to see it in person, and I went to the open day. And when I went there in person, I just felt like I could see myself living there, because when I was applying to medicine, I was like, right, this is a 5-6 year course. I need to be in a place where I can see myself not only studying but living in. And I'd gone to other universities, and I don't know, there just wasn't something how I felt at UCL. So I applied to UCL, and I'm happy with my decision to this day. So, my gut told me the right thing. So I would say, if you can, try and visit as many universities as you can, because you will be living in that city or town or wherever you are. You need to see what the university is like, what the campus is like, what the staff are like, what the students are like, what the social life is like. So yeah, definitely try and see in person or attend the open day or something like that.
Superb. And you might meet Anne-Marie at Open Day, because all of our ambassadors come and help at all the events. I think that's great. And Anne-Marie, I'm a UCL graduate too, and I only had an offer to UCL. But I particularly enjoyed being at UCL Medical School myself. Divine, what were your reasons for choosing to come to UCL?
My name's Divine. I'm going into my third year as well. I'm going to be studying women's health. So I would say my reasons for studying at UCL are a bit less organized than Anne Mary's, because I applied during like the funny like COVID year where things were kind of half shut, half open. I didn't get to go to any universities or any open days. So I applied entirely off of like word of mouth and like what I saw online, that kind of thing. And I'm from London, so I was very happy to stay in London. I kind of love the vibe of London. I knew I wanted to be in a big city as well. So that was one of my main reasons. And then I think the main reason I chose UCL is because of like the social aspect. And I think UCL was very, very notorious for having very high academic rigor, but equally as much having a very like flourishing social life and things always going on campus. And I knew for me, especially like medical students are very academic, very studious, and I knew I needed something like social to balance that, and UCL would be able to provide me that, and that's why I chose UCL. And I would say I'm very happy with my decision as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Divine. So I'm going to come back to Anne-Marie again, and there's a question about social life. We often get asked the question that medicine's really busy. Do you have time to do other things outside of the curriculum? So Anne-Marie, would you be able to just give a bit of a flavour of what else is out there for people?
So I would say there's definitely time for social stuff. Obviously, there's also points where you are struggling a little bit trying to revise, and so you might put that a little bit aside. But yeah, there's loads of things. So as Dr. Sarah Bennett mentioned earlier, we have something called ROMS, and that's sort of like the student body for medicine, and it's all student-led. And within that, there's so many different societies, whether that's sports, music, academic, whatever. So for example, I'm part of the ROMS football women's team, and within that we have training on Mondays, we have on Wednesdays, there's also sports night, we have games, they sometimes run tutorials where they help us. So even though it's just football, there's a large social aspect where we probably see each other 3 times a week, so you become good friends with people in a wide range of the year groups, which also helps understanding what medicine is like when you can hear it from people who are in 5th and 6th year. And apart from ROMS, you can also be part of all the UCL wide societies and clubs, and there are so many. My favorite one being the Taylor Swift Society. We do karaoke night, brilliant. So yeah, there is always a society or anything for every single person out there, and if there isn't, you can start it yourself, and it's not very hard to do. And yeah, basically it will be tough, but you do have time for everything else. Alongside like ROMS, I have a job myself. My friends all have jobs as well. Like it is possible to do. You manage your time as time goes on. You learn how to balance things a bit better. But yeah.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, Anne-Marie. That's brilliant. There's a question about, is there a cricket team? Absolutely. I think there's pretty much a society for almost anything and everything that you can think of. There is a bubble tea society. Divine, anything else that you've done outside of the medicine course?
Yeah, so I do RUMS netball. I'm actually captain of my team this year as well. In first year, I did taekwondo, and in second year, I was part of Modo Fashion Society, and I was even on the magazine cover as well.
Amazing. So there is absolutely time to do things outside the course. So The timetables are fairly busy. So in the first and second year, it is a lot of lectures, but there are also practicals, there are anatomy sessions, and so dotted around the timetable, there will be a lot of things for you to do between 9 and 5, or sometimes a little bit later, sometimes till 6. With some gaps. There will be some half days where your group is not doing something and another group is doing that activity. So there is some consolidation time. The difference between school and university in terms of timetables is that every single day is different. And every single week is different because you're doing sequential modules. You saw on that picture of the curriculum map that in year 1, you will do 4 weeks of foundations of health and medical practice. You then do 4 weeks of infection defense. You then do 6 weeks of circulation and breathing, and then you do 7 weeks of fluids, nutrition, and metabolism. So we have a systems-based program. All students will follow the same course, so there isn't any choice to the topics that you are studying, because you need to know everything in medicine for when you see those patients. And so there will be time for you to do other things like special study components, and to choose to do things outside of the programme too, and we strongly encourage that. So quite a few questions that I've noticed in the chat about BMAT and UCAT coming along. So as I said in the talk, it's very difficult to give an exact score that would potentially get you to interview. Have a look at the range of scores that there are on our website on the notice board page. That gives you an indication, but it is a bit different every single year, the range of scores, because it is a bell-shaped curve that we see of scores, slightly shifts every year across the country, for those that are sitting BMAT, but also for those that are actually applying just to UCL, and because those are the only scores that we get. And so that's all that we can look at and put on our website. We don't have a different cut-off score for graduates, and graduates are assessed alongside all of our other applicants. We do only have a separate cut-off for international students because it is a separate application process for those 24 places, and for our Access UCL students as well. We don't have a specific number of Access UCL places. We simply look at those that are performing well, and that have good BMAT scores that they will be invited to interview. Fabulous. So I'd like to come back to Anne-Mary about the timetable in year 1. Could you just explain a little bit more about day-to-day and what happens?
So year 1 feels so long ago now. So because we were still in that COVID period, a lot of our lectures then were online. But when you are going into year 1, you know, I'd say every day you probably have lectures. 2, 3, 4. It depends every single day. If you don't have a lecture, you might have anatomy, or you might have some lab work, or some free study time, whatever. But it is quite a jam-packed timetable, I have to say. Wednesday afternoons, you don't have anything, and that's just a wide course. UCL, all universities have Wednesdays off typically, and that is time made for you to do sports or societies, or you know, whatever you want. But yeah, I'd say typical day in the life is probably lectures, or if you're not, you've got anatomy or lab or tutorial. Friday mornings, I think it is in first year, you've got something called CPP. This is when you go to your own designated hospital and you're with your tutorial group, and you'll do different things such as professionalism or ethics, or you do clinical skills, and you know, they bring in access for that so you can practice on them. So I'd say every week varies, but the typical around it is lecture heavy.
Superb. Thank you very much, Anne-Mary. Professor Gishin, so there are a couple of questions about placements and about where the teaching happens on the programme. I wondered if you could give a flavour of what happens in the early years then versus what happens when students get into year 4, 5 and 6 for their placements.
Certainly, thank you. So as I said, in the introductory slides, there is some clinical contact with patients in the early years. Sometimes those patients will actually come into campus. So do you remember I showed you a slide with clinical and professional practice on it? If you do, you'll remember that that happens, well, certainly in year one on a Thursday morning. And in some of those sessions, a patient might actually come and visit a small group of students on campus. So there are some clinical opportunities in the early years, but not as many as, say, some medical schools. When you hit the clinical years, so year 4, you will be not exclusively on placements, because there are some lectures and teaching that happens, but you will be mainly based in clinical placements. And how it works at UCL is that you go in year 4 and year 5 to one of our main central trusts. So if you'll remember, that's UCLH, the Whittington, the Royal Free, Barnet, North Middlesex, and that will be your base site for the whole year. So you'll get to know the teams, you'll really become part of the team there, and you'll do all your specialties, well, most of your specialties at that home site. And it will be a different home site for your 5th year than you went to in your 4th year. There is some peel off, so there are some hospitals like Great Ormond Street, for paediatrics, or Moorfields for eyes, that you will peel off to. And then when you come to final year, you will usually be based in primary care and at a district general hospital, so one of our partners slightly further afield. And of course, there's also an opportunity to go abroad, which I suspect Dr. Bennett may want to touch on separately, but that's an elective which we can answer any questions about. So year 6 is based a bit further afield, and you can be placed all over the UK. So clinical placements are pretty exciting.
Thank you, Professor Kishan. Just to follow up on that, there's a question then about, is that a disadvantage to have less clinical practice in the early years?
You might want to address that to our students, although they haven't been through the whole programme yet. I don't think so. I think UCL, as we said at the beginning, is a very research-rich institution. We really pride ourselves on giving you an excellent basic sciences platform to then take into your clinical practice. I don't think it's a disadvantage. It's just one type of programme, lots of different programmes throughout medical schools in the UK, but we want to give you a very sound science basis to medicine.
Thank you. It's often a very difficult question for us to answer, actually, because, I mean, this is a programme that we've run for a long time, I've graduated from, and I think I learned well from the early years of the programme, which was even more science heavy, I think, when I did it, than it is now. Now we provide a lot of clinical context in the early years, and then you're applying that knowledge to clinical practice. So what I would say is that medicine degree courses do change. It's important for you to realise that medicine is one of those subjects that changes almost daily. You will see in the news that COVID is one of those examples, isn't it? Where who knew that that was going to happen, and that there would be a new vaccine that was produced, and that we would have to be dealing with a virus in that sort of way. Now we have to teach our students about COVID and about the vaccination and about dealing with mass disaster medicine. And so our course is adapting and changing all the time. And so I would anticipate that coming on to any medicine programme in next year, the year after, 2 or 3 years' time, it will be different. There will be different things that we teach because we know new things and different things, and that there will be advances that we are now using. The example of that is online learning, of course. So pre-pandemic, there was very little online learning, whereas now we do incorporate that blend of online activities for students, computer-assisted learning, that some lectures may well be synchronously held online, a little bit like this. The majority of time is spent in person, and we would encourage you to engage with an in-person course like this. But it gives us the opportunity to provide you with information in a variety of different formats as well. So I think that that is an advantage. So the next question I'd like to come to is about accommodation. So Anne-Mary, I believe you were at home in your first year, is that right? Could you talk a little bit about commuting and how that was for you?
No, I was in student accommodation during first year. So I was in Schaefer, which is about 5 to 10 minutes walk from campus. So it was great because I was very, very close by. And it was quite a big accommodation. So not only were there lots of medics in my accommodation, but there was also people from UCL. So it was quite good for socializing with people outside of medicine, because sometimes I do feel like it can be a little bit tough to meet people outside of medicine when you're studying medicine all day. Then you might be doing sports with medics. So it was quite nice to come back from studying and then be around people who don't do medicine. In terms of what a con was like, it was nice. I'd never really had any issues. It was just nice to have my own space for once. A lot of independence. You don't have your parents asking you where you are all the time. You can leave when you want, whatever. But it was also quite hard because I just started university. There's loads of social events going on, with like Freshers Week. But then you also have to like study and take care of yourself. Like you need to feed yourself, you need to wash all your clothes and everything. So it was quite a big change in terms of independence. But I very much enjoyed that independence. I feel like I grew up a lot in that time. Yeah.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. It is a big step, isn't it? I mean, I remember it well, coming to medical school and suddenly having to manage money, manage your life and your timetable. And that is a big step, an exciting step. Divine, I don't know whether you want to add to that at all. Where did you live in your first year?
So I stayed in halls as well. I was in Beaumont Court, which is further down by King's Cross, which it's a bit of a distance to walk, but I didn't mind it too much because I've never lived too close to any of the schools I've gone to. And I would just like, yeah, I would echo what Anne-Marie said. I would say living in halls really makes you grow up really fast, but like in a good way. And I say another part of university, as much as it's about learning, it's about growing up and becoming a real adult as well. So I feel like, yeah, in first year, especially if you live in halls, you grow up so fast.
Super, thank you both. And just to reassure you that there are a lot of students who live in and around London and who do commute every day to UCL. And I've certainly had students coming on these sorts of webinars before who have said that that's incredibly doable. In fact, when you get into year 2 and beyond, you will be living out. You will be living in zone 2, 3, 4 of London and commuting in every day. And there is plenty of opportunity for you to take part in all the activities that are around your studies as well, and to make friends with people. And so don't feel that you would be left out if you are commuting. We appreciate that some people prefer to do that. Sometimes it's cost saving for people to do that, and that's perfectly fair. Brilliant. So we have about 7 minutes to go. So if you've got any last minute burning questions, please do pop them in the chat. There is a couple of questions about open days. Open days are usually held in the summer for most universities in person. So we tend to do some virtual open days in the spring, April, May time, and open days in person usually happen at the end of June, beginning of July. I would recommend that you sign up on the open day website for those notifications so that you can sign up to attend. We have sometimes around 10,000 people on campus for those open days. So it can be really buzzing, it can be really exciting. You can find out more about the whole university itself. So it's a great way to come and decide whether this is somewhere that you feel you will really enjoy studying, where you will feel at home, where you'll feel part of the family that is UCL. And so I'd strongly recommend coming to an open day. The other thing to mention is about the different campuses. So a few people have mentioned about UCL East. So that's currently not a campus that we use as the medical school, but of course there are activities that will be going on at the UCL East campus. There will be the availability of sports activities, etc. over on that campus. Most students will remain around the Bloomsbury campus, but of course out at other hospital sites as well. There is a bit of travel that is involved with being at medical school wherever you go. And so there will be travel on the underground. You get well versed with the Northern Line. If you come to London, you'll know all about the underground, going up and down to places like Barnet or the Royal Free or the Whittington Hospital, all going to general practice placements, which are of course in and around London as well. Fantastic. So in our last few minutes, I'll come back to my three helpers here. One piece of advice that you would give to our future applicants. So can I come to Divine first, please?
I would say applying to medicine is a very stressful process, and I'm sure if you're applying now, you'll feel it. But I'd say it's very important to keep your eye on the prize and remember the end goal. As hard as it feels, think about how you're going to feel in 8 months' time when you have your offer and you're like going to the university of your dreams and doing your studying for your dream job. I know it's hard, but just push through it. Take time for yourself, talk to your teachers, talk to your friends. If you're stressed out, don't burn out, and just, try your hardest.
That's really good advice. Thank you very much, Divine. And Mary?
I would say take it one step at a time. I remember when I was in year 12 and year 13, and I was sort of like spiraling, thinking about all the steps in medicine, like, oh, I need to do this and this and this. Then, oh, I need to think about what type of doctor I want. And my teacher used to just be like, whoa, 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 you haven't even written your personal statement. Let's start here. And so, yeah, just sort of like have down each step with the deadlines and just take each one as it goes. Like, what do you have first? Personal statement. Great, focus on that. Then what's next? BMAT. Okay, between then and then, do BMAT. Now that BMAT's out the way, focus on A-levels. So I would say just take each one individually and try and focus on that and then deal with the rest. Because if you think about every single thing the next 6-7 years, it will feel way too much and you will burn out, as Divine says. So yeah, just take it one at a time.
I think that's great advice, because it is a long process. We totally understand that this will be your life now for several years, that you're thinking about applying to medical school and how to get in and the preparation that you need. I would hope that when you come to us to interview, that you will be able to tell us all about that and why you have done that and what is the motivation that has made you prepare in that sort of way. So Professor Gishin, your piece of advice, please.
Oh, some really sage words from our students there. So I would say medicine is a brilliant career. It's an absolute privilege to be able to work with patients. And of course, you can have a very varied portfolio career like myself and Dr. Bennett do. You could do research, you could do education, all sorts of things, management, leadership. So it's a brilliant career. I want to wish you good luck. And as Divine said, eyes on the prize, and just be yourself. Just present yourself at interview, be authentic, and just show us who you are. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to my panel and to my helpers answering all the questions in the background. We've answered quite a lot there. The recording to this webinar and the webinars that we did earlier in the year are available on the UCL website. So you can go back and have a look at the slides again. There are a few questions about what will be asked at interview. That's all on our website. And for those that apply to us, we will put that in a message to everybody as well, to give you a little bit of preparation before you come. My piece of advice is, as Professor Gishin said, is be yourself, be authentic. That's what we want to see. We want to see more about you. There's only so much that we can gather from a BMAT score. That gives us a bit of information about how you are performing in terms of your clinical aptitude. But now we want to see more about why you've applied and what preparation you've made. Use examples at interview. Use your experiences to show the interviewers how much you know about being a doctor and why you want to do it. You can all do it. Come in with a bit of confidence in the interview. If you get to the interview stage, it means that you have a good chance of being made an offer. So I hope that you have enjoyed the webinar today. I hope that we've managed to answer some of your questions. I'm sure that you will have more and you're very welcome to email into the admissions team to ask your questions further, or come to one of our open days next summer. We look forward to meeting you, and I look forward to seeing your applications over the next few years. Thank you very much.